Let's do it. Okay, guys. Hello to another episode of Abstract Apes. Today we're going to be talking about social media, right? We have a guest here. Our guest is Anne. She's my sister, but she's also working in the influencer marketing area. We're going to be talking about, her experience, as well as, going through many topics like how has social media changed our life today. It's been such a explosion in the last 10 years with social media platforms booming, people opening businesses there, people using them all the time. So yeah, we're going to be talking about a lot. I'm really excited. Are you?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So Penef here as well, would you like to add anything about like why we're doing this episode? What are we going to be covering?
Yeah, so we recently read, at least I read a few books from Cal Newport, who is a big fan of digital minimalism, and I think you're also involved with some of his work, and I really resonate with what he's saying. And one of these days when I was posting on Instagram from our account, by the way, follow us on Instagram, I actually thought about social media and how it's influencing everything I do, and how it's really the easiest but at the same time the hardest to really use it correctly.
Yeah, to navigate it properly without the risk.
Yeah.
So Anne, what has your experience been with social media, just on a personal level, using it day to day? How do you use it?
Well, personally, I think in the beginning when Facebook was just developing, so to say, I was pretty much addicted. I was what must have been like 13 at the time. And I think I would go multiple times a day, and just even if I wasn't doing anything in particular, like sharing photos or writing, it was just be to go through people's profiles, see what they're up to. And I definitely spent way too much, more than I should have. And I think that throughout the years, especially now that I'm working within that industry, I think that like my usage has decreased like drastically. And I'm kind of like appalled by it by now. But like you said, like a few years ago when the whole boom happened, myself and I think a lot of young people out there were fully on addicted.
Yeah, that's a very common trend when it comes to teenagers. They overuse it. They're always on there. What do you think that is? It's like a social thing where you're contacting your friends and it's really easy, or is there something deeper going on?
Well, I think that in terms of contacts, I would say that's more for the, not necessarily like elderly, but people who have traveled, lived abroad, like people like us three, for example, who, come from one place, have lived in another, etc. But I think that when it comes to teenagers specifically, obviously their circle is rather small, so they know the people from their secondary school and their neighbors. So I think that like they do see each other quite often on a day-to-day basis. And I think that the actual issue there is more that the platform gives a nice measure of comparison in between the individuals. So saying, just it's gonna it might not be the best thing I've ever said, but I think that they can actually, I suppose, on like a social scale, and using Maslow's pyramid as an example, is the easiest way to compare how well you're doing in life.
What is that?
Yeah.
So seeing Maslow's pyramid, do you mean?
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Oh, that's where the expert comes in. No, but basically Maslow's theory, and like I might be wrong because I did that 6 years ago
Back in
now,
uni.
when I was it was in doing my A-levels.
Oh, A-level media.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
A-level media studies, and we studied Maslow, which is how I know it, but that was like a while back now. So basically Maslow has this pyramid of basic human necessities and how they sort of evolve through different stages. So you have at the bottom like the basic needs, which is having water, having food, having shelter. And then as you go further up the pyramid, you see more sort of first world, so to say, issues where you have self-establishment, self-confidence, the need to develop further, etc., etc. And I think that what social media does is really sort of enlarge those issues that we face, where in the self-fulfillment and like comparing where each those teenagers is, in terms of their social life, in terms of their personal life at home, how well they're doing at school, how well they might achieve in the future.
So like in the middle of the pyramid where you have social, like the social well-being, the relationships, this is where people are lacking. Like maybe a teenager is right there fulfilling those needs.
Exactly.
And social media hooks them just because of that, because they have the need to communicate with people, and they feel very, very good by having 100, 200, 300 friends. But the problem is that it's not really exactly friends, right? You're not going out there and speaking to them, having proper interactions, having that deep connection. It's all kind of surface level, right? You see 12 DMs in your Instagram page, but they're not really actual interactions. So this is where the problem comes,
exactly.
right?
And the funny thing is, it might not even be people that you've ever spoken to. So you might know them, I've seen their faces, more like an acquaintance, and yet you like each other's pictures, you comment on them, you say, hey, you're looking great, or well done for this or that, etc. And then in reality, you've never had a face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, and Penef, you mentioned Carl Newport, so we spoke about some of the problems with social media. Carl Newport really advocates the restriction of like using social media, not in terms of like a ban or making it illegal, but just using it more more mindfully, and then even avoiding the use of it just because of the problems it creates. And what kind of things does Carl Newport propose more specifically so that we can navigate this realm of social media in a better and more healthy way?
Well, first of all, before I mention his overall views, I would like to mention something that Annie said in the beginning when she started speaking. She said that when she has gotten to know what social medias are and stuff like that, she's gotten way less attached to them. So I think a big reason for, personal opinion on this, but a big reason is ignorance. So people just simply don't know the gravity of their actions on social media and how much time simply they're investing in what they could be doing. Because I think young people are very gullible, and the psychology tricks that psychologists in the Silicon Valley who are engineering these apps to really take up as much attention as they can are really abusing. And I think in teenagers that is probably very easy to do because they're not taking input from their parents. By that time they've stopped kind of listening to their parents. They want to be their own personality. And that is the precise time when social media comes in and just starts controlling their life, because they see hyper-connectedness with their peers and at the same time something to invest their time, which they kind of think it's okay because they're staying connected with their friends kind of. So that is basically what Cal Newport really attacks, just the sheer amount of attention we give to social media without the necessary benefits. So basically we spend too much time for the stuff we get out of it. And
and it's not the most productive way to use your time, right?
And I could debate.
So in what way can social media be healthily used, maybe for your business or for your personal satisfaction that avoids all of these problems that we've been talking about?
Well, I think it's all about how you intend to use it. So if it's just pointless scrolling up and down, that's not gonna bring anything for you and do anything, is it? But then if you use it in order to advertise your product, to reach out to people, to build your network, I think that it can definitely be a benefit for having those.
Yeah, and you're in the field of influencer marketing, so everything you're doing is that kind of oriented, right? Business oriented. See how you can grow using social media. What has your experience been in that positive side, which is growing businesses, reaching out to more people, creating a platform for a purpose you might have?
Yeah, well, exactly what you said, actually. This is the biggest benefit of social media, that you now can reach audiences that you never could before. Because if you think of 20 or 30 years ago, everything was pretty much local based, And if you were to expand your company, then, you know, chances were you had to either send someone or find someone there and physically grow it out. Whereas now you don't even need to have a physical office anymore. I mean, like in these corona times, I think it just proved it even more.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you can actually engage on social, I suppose, then your business can be global, absolutely.
Yeah, in the past, people just used to like stick flyers and posters everywhere, but now using these social media, you can like Instagram, Facebook, whatever, you can actually reach a bigger audience all around the world. So I definitely agree with that.
I have a few questions for Annie here, because you kind of started about this whole influencing and success that she has observed on social media. I want to ask a more personal question. Have you yourself had any benefit of using social media, like in influencing or social life or educating yourself? Any one example that really strikes out when you think about it?
I would say for me personally, the biggest advantage and like example that I could give is connectivity. Basically, I don't know if your audience knows, but like Danny is Bulgarian, you're Bulgarian, I'm Bulgarian therefore as well. And I moved to Spain when I was younger, and now I'm here based in the UK. So for me, being able to keep in contact with all of the people that I've met throughout the years in the different countries, I think that for me that has been the biggest benefit of them all, because, you know, for example, when we were younger, we went on a cruise. I met some people from the States that chances are I might never ever meet again in my life, but, you know, I have them on Facebook. We still comment on each other's photos. We still have a group. We did plan to meet up once, but it never happened. But regardless, you know, I think that it's just having that opportunity, which is really good. So I think, like, for me personally, I would say the one thing would definitely be connectivity.
Yeah, and think about it, like, we wouldn't be able, 100 years ago, we wouldn't be able to even do this podcast. We wouldn't be able to communicate with, like, you, Pinef, because you're all the way in Bournemouth. That's like, I don't know, a 2-hour drive from here. And the only reason we're able to communicate is because we have, I don't know, Messenger, Discord, all of these these apps that allow us to communicate.
You're right. However, we're not speaking about video calls. We're talking about social media in particular. And this is where my attack comes in, and the opinion of Cal Newport, which is connectivity is not social media. You can still stay in contact with your friends by just giving them a call once a month. And he argues that will probably have way better consequences than just liking and commenting on each other's photos. It would really bring you closer to your friends with way less time spent in that like relationship, investing in that relationship. However, you're going to get more benefits. What do you think about that?
I would say, do you know what the price is to make a call from UK to the US per minute? That's
there are services like Skype, like Discord, like...
Well, Skype, I'm sorry to say this, dear Skype founders, but like I think it's gone down.
They're Estonians,
and I think
you know?
that people are moving towards more, not necessarily universal, but apps that offer most services at once, where, you know, Skype is just used for the sole purpose of calling and messaging, whereas, you know, apps like Facebook, for example, you can do calls, you can do text, you can do photos, you can do videos, the list goes on, really. Social media saves you money. Social media saves you time, I think, when it comes to, in terms of keeping in contact, because it's cheap. Well, it's free. Well, I can argue how, you know, the price you're paying to use these apps, but anyway, that's another question. But, you know, technically you're not paying to use the app. You can keep in contact. And also, imagine something happened. Let's say you got engaged. Are you actually going to call 100 people and say, hi, I just got engaged. Tell me congratulations. You know, no, it's not the case. You share a photo, and obviously you expect all of the positivity, happiness, or whatever it is, you know, to come towards you.
Why do you need that gratification?
I think what you're hinting at, Pinef, is the fact that social media can be used in a very shallow way. Like, you know, 100 people, you're not really speaking to them individually. But on the other hand, it allows us to expand our connectivity. So that's what it's all about. We have the opportunity to meet new people. And if the connections are going to stay shallow, that's just because we haven't we haven't put ourselves forward and said, oh, let's meet or let's talk on the phone, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just the opportunity to have all of these people available.
I see. Well, Cal Newport, this is what he is basically arguing. I'm not trying to make a case for not using social media at all here. I quite enjoy it. Getting gratification from my friends is
you like
actually
posting
very
the backflips. Your skills
yeah,
and
yeah. I mean,
as well.
it really is important for me as well to get gratification from my friends. Put something out there to better represent who I am and stuff like that. So like if you get engaged, yes, you post it. It will represent who you are. However, my problem with all of this is the mindless scrolling that you mentioned and the real time that you spend. I'm guessing that's what you cited when you said price to pay for social media. It's really the time we spend on these apps, right?
Well, I would say the biggest price that we pay, that I don't know whether we're actually aware of or we're just being ignorant, or different people have different viewpoints on this, but I think the biggest price that we pay is giving our data for free.
Yeah, so that's a big topic right now, which is what should we do with that data? Facebook, they were caught, multiple companies were caught selling the data of customers without them knowing. How is that gonna change in the future? What's gonna happen?
Well, you can only hope that there's gonna be more privacy policies in place, but I guess we'll never know, because technically when you do sign up, even though no one reads them, and like I'm being completely honest, I've barely read any of my terms and conditions
I think no
as
one
well.
does.
No one does, no, unless you have to.
Yeah.
And that is actually bringing me on another point, but like unless you have to, you don't go through them and you blindly say, okay, yes, I agree, whatever, let's just get it going, I need to use this app now. And I would say I can hope that more privacy comes in place, but then also comes in the argument, what are the companies gonna get in exchange from its users in that case? Because what they actually get their money from is their data, targeted ads, things like that. So if we were to sort of keep our data private, but I suppose set a limitation on how much they can sell to third parties and have more legal precautions and stuff, what are they essentially gonna get for having these apps for free?
Yeah, well, the targeted ads, that's the main source of revenue, right? But already the data protection law in Europe has stopped all the companies from selling the data. You have to, consent for that data even to be used, within the company.
Yes, technically, but, as you said, you don't read your terms and conditions. I don't either. So for all we know, it is being sold, and we just tick the yes box.
Hopefully it's not being sold, because that would be illegal now. I mean, what was the data protection law code? GDPR, yeah. So GDPR states that companies cannot sell, distribute, and work with your data, and they can't save it either. So if they have your name and address and everything, they can't
can
use.
save it for up to 2 years technically.
Yeah, and it can't be resold. So hopefully, that's the right step in the right direction, and they wouldn't be able to sell that data and just take advantage of their customers.
So what's the big deal about your data, though? I don't understand.
It's an ethical.
How is my data valuable? I'm just a nobody, and maybe I really enjoy getting targeted ads.
Yeah, but I suppose here comes the argument. You're a nobody, I'm a nobody, we're a nobody, but then collectively we're a target group of, for example, young voters who have yet to make up their political mind. We are a target group for, I don't know, many, many different purposes. So, 5, 10, and then it grows to 100, 200, as many as you want individuals who are actually nobodies who can actually make big changes happen. And an example of that is the Brexit campaign. It's Donald Trump's campaign.
Yeah.
A bunch of nobodies who obviously didn't know their data was being used, and it changed history.
Yeah, so that's a big case that we can talk about, the way they used, so the Brexit campaign and the Trump campaign, the way they used social media to influence their audience, their voters. to change history, as you said. Like, what happened there?
I think it was. I'm not saying that what happened was good, but in terms of marketing strategy, in terms of the planning and everything behind it, I think it was a brilliant campaign.
Genius,
Yeah, it's absolutely genius. I'm not saying I agree. I'm not saying I'm on either side. I'm just saying in terms of looking at it from a purely marketing social media perspective, that was magnificent.
So we can talk about its ethical implications, right? Was it ethical to do? And I think both of us are more on the spectrum of no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But then it was so effective. How did they target their audience, as you said? Say younger people or older people, and they could target those people on social media to influence them to vote and increase their chances of winning. That's just mind-blowing to me, how you can use social media in that way to have so much power and control over the choices of people.
But that is the thing, you can only use it once you have the back knowledge to do so. So, Ben, if you're doing programming, you're doing physics, you're both pretty smart people. So, in order to
thank you.
In order to make something work in practice, you need to have the theory behind it. So it was something kind of similar of what happened. They had all of this information for all of these individuals readily available. So only then were they able to execute the actual ads, which then influence people's actual mindsets and then political decisions.
Yeah.
I think
Really
the power of
changed
habit
history.
actually goes really in depth about this. How even in the beginning of the 1990s, Target and Walmart and all these huge grocery stores started collecting data about people, and then they could really look into their lives. They literally knew better. Walmart knew that a girl was pregnant before her father did. It was something absolutely insane, and that's the case that actually kind of changed history, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the case for data collection really is a big thing, and that's why it's gotten so big and such a immediate threat to our privacy in recent years.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shop, the chain of Target, the shops, they did that as well with the pregnancy. They knew they could guess if you're pregnant or not.
I'm not sure if it was Walmart or Target.
Target, and they send you different ads, and here and there occasionally they put an ad for Pampers or not Pampers, or diapers, or baby trolleys, whatever you all baby related products.
Yeah.
And that boosted their sales. So the goal was, of course, to boost sales. And there was a debate of whether that's ethical, whether they should be allowed to do that. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't necessarily see as much of a harm when it comes to products that can sort of, only reflect on you as an individual. So the case of Target, I wouldn't really mind if Tesco send me products that I might like, because I think that would be good, especially if it comes with coupons. Shout out Tesco, please do that. And I think that the big issue, and what I think is very unethical, is when it's used to change people's mindsets and perception on things. I think and that's when the big issue comes in, because I don't mind if I see a Target for a dress. That I don't think that that's the end of the world. But when it comes to important matters, I think that
political matters,
yeah.
Maybe there's an area which should be screened
out
from all that.
Healthcare, exactly. Certain things I just don't think that it's right to mess up with.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, you're right. I completely agree with that. However, what if, you say that you would enjoy getting targeted ads, which are trivial, like dresses or small coupon codes for food. What if you had some some biases and some already established opinions about politics, and you just didn't know which party represented those opinions, and Facebook knew about your opinions somehow? What if they just said, hey, this party really stands for what you believe in. However, if we don't tell you that this party exists, you might never know about it, and you might go and give your vote to somebody else who you might not necessarily stand behind. What do you think about that case?
I think it's up to me to educate myself and find a party that represents me. because Facebook is not unbiased when it comes to that. You know, it targets you with ads and it only chooses that one campaign. It doesn't show you, you know, this political party does that, this political party, you know, comparison to different. And I think that, you know, essentially what would have been fair if they said, for example, this is Trump, this is Hillary, and comparing them in a sort of unbiased way. Because, you know, when it comes to the clothing example, I think that saves me time, and I think that my decision won't impact the whole nation.
I see.
But the case,
yes, that is a good argument.
It's just a decision on a personal level.
Exactly.
And so when it comes to voting, it's really hard to talk about because it's such an important decision, and if you target big groups of people, then
exactly. And I think that like every adult, and by adult I'm saying, you know, as long as you have 18 or whatever the voting age is at your country, I suppose, and it's your responsibility to educate yourself, to follow at least a little bit of politics. I know it might not be the most interesting topic on the world, but it is important, and it can change a lot, as we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years now. So I think everyone, as a responsible young adult, should look it up, should educate themselves, should make the right choice. And you know, I'm not saying there's necessarily like a right or wrong, but I suppose what you agree with, without having any external influence, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very important. Yeah, I think the ethical implications here are very important, as we've talked about.
I'm going to ask Annie a few questions about what Cal Newport really believes in, going back to him. Quite a while ago, I actually read one of his other books. It's called Deep Work. So he has 2 books that I've indulged myself into. One is called Deep Work, which is about getting into a state of mind which allows you to be at your most productive. And then there is Digital Minimalism, which explains a philosophy of being very careful with your time that you give to technology. So Digital Minimalism goes over social media. It says how, you know, social media really doesn't give us that much for the time we spend on it. So like the average person spends like 3 hours on their phone and stuff like that. And he targets those specific uses of technology in our lives, which make it more of a hindrance rather than a benefit if you kind of abuse it. And then there is Deep Work, which kind of focuses more on the input other brains and other minds and basically the environment has on you while you're working. And this is something that kind of overlaps, is the social media is constantly giving you input about everything that you need in your social life, constantly throughout the whole day. So you're only one touch away from getting interfered with your brain from like so many sources, you know, other people, Facebook, ads and stuff like that. And he argues the main reason why social media is bad for you is because you're giving away your attention. You cannot be alone with your own thoughts anymore. You just become addicted to being not yourself, basically. Mm-hmm. You're becoming a slave to something that you would not want to be, because that is simply our psychology. We're looking for stimulus. We're looking for little dopamine rewards, and we just can't get away from it without a certain degree of discipline. And social media really does give us a lot of dopamine. So what do you think? Like, do you ever think, wow, social media is really like I'm really checking my story too much today, or I'm really checking my new post too much today, as to I'm thinking too much about it. I can't really do my job as I wanted to do, or I could be spending this time reading or something else. What do you think about that?
I think it's all about personal work ethics. Because for me, I know that, you know, when I'm working and that's that. My phone's shut off and it's away. But I guess some people struggle more in terms of being more focused and being more productive as well with their phones around. I know that not everyone has as much of a self-control as I do. No, I do agree with what he's saying, but then again, we also I think have a lot more spare time than our parents or our grandparents back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, our
Yes.
laws are very well, like very liberal nowadays. You
Yeah.
have a 9 to 5 job. If you think about it, is amazing because after 5 p.m. you are free to do whatever you want. The average work week 100 years ago was 60 hours plus, right? So you're working every day,
Yeah.
like more than 8 hours, and there's no day off. Like maybe you're on the farm, and you have to feed your whole family. So in that case, we are very liberal. We have more free time. That's where maybe the social media usage comes from. But what in the book Deep Work, which I've read as well by Carol Newport, he argues that because we're one click away, we can't really concentrate in that one specific task. What came to my mind though right now as I'm talking about this is if you're actually doing something you're passionate about and you really enjoy, then the social media isn't going to be a distraction for you because you're going to be focused on the thing you actually like. Maybe where the problem comes in is that a lot of people don't have that passion in their life, so they use social media as an escape. So they click there because they don't want to be at work. They want to be always somewhere else. They're looking at other people having fun. And maybe that's where the actual problem comes in, is because people are not engaging in deep work because they don't have that passionate day-to-day life.
Yeah, I wouldn't also say it's necessarily about the passion. I do agree with your point, but I'm saying, our grandparents a few years back, I don't think they necessarily enjoyed picking corn, for example.
So you're speaking about the fact that, a lot of people aren't passionate today. Do you think our grandparents that picked corn or whatever, do you think, or great-great-grandparents, if they had the option of social media, they would have picked their phone up? Because they did not, like on the farm, just let me check.
I think
what
it's
people are
about
doing.
different responsibilities. So, our ancestors, they had, 6 kids on average, just as an example. The wife who took care of all the kids, and it was up to them to feed all 7 throats, technically.
Yeah.
So I don't think they have the option. Whereas nowadays, I think that especially young people have the alternative to... I don't want to offend anyone and say waste their time, but spend more time doing things they shouldn't necessarily be doing, such as going on social.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's having the option.
Having their
Well, do you
phone.
think it's a good thing that we choose to spend our time on social media, something that is so empty and in no way self-improving?
I can argue. Depends what you use it for. You can use social media and spend, 5 hours a day on it working, making a living, building your brand, building a business, making new connections. I suppose that's what you use it for. Obviously, if you're pointlessly just liking people's photos, then I would say there are better ways to spend your free time. But if you're doing it and it's giving you something, then I suppose, yeah.
I see. Well, yeah, but then it would be considered work. If you're really building a brand and you're expanding into new horizons and stuff like that and reaching an audience, then wouldn't you say it will be considered work and not really like marketing rather than social media usage?
I suppose you can do it for free as well if it's early in the beginning stage and you spend your spare time doing that. I think there's many ways to look at it.
Also, if you're talking about leisure time, then maybe you can use it for 2 things. One is to connect actually with your friends and arrange something like, hey, let's meet up, whatever. Or you want to expand your network. LinkedIn is actually one of the platforms that's professionally oriented, and it's a very good way to connect to people in different fields.
And it's still so addictive.
And it's still the design of it is so addictive. You get like notifications, new posts, whatever, like people liking, hearting, whatever. But it's a good way to actually reach the professional people and just send them a message, ask them to, hey, can I get your advice, or what company you're working for? Can I get to know, what your work? And in that way, it can be very productive.
Yeah. No, LinkedIn, I think it's a great example. I think that, personally, if I had to define LinkedIn with a sentence, that would be the professional Facebook.
Yeah.
Because, you can still post photos and all of the other features that Facebook offers, but it's way more professionally orientated, and I think that, you know, it can be. I think personally, I would tend to procrastinate more on LinkedIn than I would on Facebook, just because I find it. I suppose it's like there's a stigma attached. You know, if you're on Facebook, it's like, should you really be there? But then you LinkedIn you associate with work. LinkedIn you associate with being professional.
Building
I know,
my
right?
brand. I'm building my brand, my personal
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah. So I think that you can
Yeah.
easily find yourself just scrolling through mentions there as well. Regardless.
It is addictive.
Yeah, it is. It's a very well built platform, though. I must be honest.
For sure, yeah, for sure. And it's very useful again to just find people, send them a message.
Yep.
It's really easy to find them.
But then again, I think you can argue, you know, how effective are those networks as well that you're building on there.
I have a friend who has gotten 2 banking internships just from LinkedIn by contacting about, I don't know, 300 people. So what he did is just send out messages to people in that sector, ask them in the beginning, how are they? A lot of them didn't have time, they didn't respond. A lot of them just said, hey, I'm free to chat, but in the end he didn't get any opportunities from them. And from 2 of them, so that's a success rate of like less than 1%, right? Point something percent. But he did get, 2 internships, 2 monthly internships in a row, which again is a point of it can be useful. You can get success there. It's just you have to persist more and put in more time, because a lot of people are just gonna screen you out.
Imagine how much time he put in that, though. Looking for those people. He probably put in at least 2 months of his own time to just look for a 2-month internship.
Yeah, but what's the alternative?
Yeah, but I suppose you get an internship in the end of the day.
Oh yes.
Yeah, what's an alternative way to do that? I don't know.
Well, me personally, I would rather prefer working on developing my skills, on becoming a better employee if I'm looking for a job, or like a more skilled worker, basically. I would much rather invest that time in myself rather than looking. I mean, you would kind of say it's investing in yourself if you're getting an internship, I guess.
Yeah, an internship is a way to improve your skills and gain experience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you kind of have to pay a price for everything.
Exactly.
I guess I don't
There's a
really care
price
about
for
it
it.
that much.
No such thing as free lunch, guys.
I think we've covered a lot of. We've covered the facts, like the benefits and disadvantages of social media as well. And I think we've talked a lot about how to use it in a balanced way, in a useful way. How to avoid things like addiction, like social media addiction, and spending too much of your time there, even like wasting it. And we've talked about how it can actually improve your professional life, your business, and things like that. And I think we can start wrapping it up.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good.
Just as a conclusion.
Thank you, Annie, for coming
My
in.
pleasure,
and
guys.
It was great. It was
blessing
great
us
to have
with
you
your.
here. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation as well.
I hope you invite me again.
Of course, the seat is always open. It's always here. And in the future, hopefully we do more podcasts
I
together.
hope so too. Like, subscribe, and follow.
Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you again in the next episode.
Smash the like!
Smash the like button.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.
See ya.
Woo!